Geno Smith traded to the Las Vegas Raiders for a third-round pick. This is a huge trade. The quarterback carousel continues this offseason. Now, remember, no trades are final until the year starts, so this is quote-unquote reported, but it's officially official. This is a wild trade because the Seahawks were good last year. The Seahawks are good. Seahawks have seemingly been very okay with Geno Smith's production. Geno has been good last couple of years here. I would say Geno certainly above average. You can certainly do worse than Geno Smith. And Seattle said, you know what? Let's just blow the whole thing up. They're trying to trade. I mean, they're releasing Tyler Lockett. They're trading Geno Smith, DK Metcalf on the block. Crazy times in Seattle. So we'll see what happens. They're not exactly in a position to draft a quarterback. So you would think they're going to try and look at a free agent or maybe make a trade. But I mean, who's really out there? Like if we talk about who's out there, Sam Darnold is out there, but Seattle has a horrific offensive line. Sam Darnold is really bad under pressure. That's not exactly a good fit. Someone like Derek Carr, I know a lot of people have said, well, Clint Kubiak's in Seattle, maybe Derek Carr. Maybe they're trying to work something out to bring Carr to the West Coast. Again, like is Carr an upgrade over Geno Smith? I would say no. And then you throw in the fact that would mean, again, you're taking a quarterback like Derek Carr or Sam Darnold or whoever, and you're putting them in front of or behind a bad offensive line. It also tells you that it gives you an idea of the value of quarterbacks. Like this kind of sets a market where Geno goes for a third. Now, a lot of people have asked me what Derek Carr's trade value is. I'd start at a third. You know, like I said a third originally. It may even be less now, depending on how teams look at Geno versus Carr. I don't know. Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's a guy that, you know, people have said, is he going to go back to Seattle? Seems kind of weird because Geno is better than Russell Wilson right now. So I don't know. Interesting move from Seattle, but the backdrop is Mike Florio in his kitchen again. Oh, from the Raiders side of things, I like it from the Raiders side because I think Geno's good, and the Raiders have had horrible quarterback play for a long time now. We know what Geno's going to provide. I would think this makes them pass on a quarterback this year. Although if they want to take Shedeur Sanders to sit behind Geno, it's kind of a perfect situation for him. But this kind of lines up to take Ashton Jeanty, I would think, where now you have Geno, you have Ashton Jeanty, you've locked up Max Crosby. Things are kind of working. Things are kind of looking okay in Las Vegas. So we'll see how that goes. But it doesn't necessarily take a quarterback off their board, but it's hard to imagine they pass on Jeanty after getting Geno.
Definitely didn't expect to be doing this on a Friday night. I was minding my own business, as I usually do. I was actually on my workout bike playing a little Madden. Text came through, NFL media reporting, the stunner so far of this pre-free agency process. Geno Smith, Seahawks quarterback, very accomplished in his eventual stint as a year-to-year starting quarterback, traded to the Las Vegas Raiders. Workout ended. Quick, upstairs to the copy-paste snarky comment cave. Then shower, toupee adjusted. Here we go with a little PFTPM. I got a lot to say about this, and I want to make sure I hit all of it.
All right.
I've got no notes, no script,
Same.
no
Me
teleprompter.
Neither. Same.
Step one.
I got nothing over here.
I think back to last week.
I got some fake flowers.
Combine, and I found the clip.
Some tape. I've got
Chris Sims and I were interviewing Seahawks GM John Schneider.
Gouging fire.
And we asked him point blank, is there any doubt that Geno Smith will be the starting quarterback in 2025? Said Schneider, no. 10 days later, yes. Traded. And when you look at all the things that Coach Mike McDonald has said about Geno Smith, we want him. We can win a championship with him. He's our guy. New offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak said that Geno was a huge draw. Now.
Guess not.
It's possible that this was all one big grift aimed at finagling a third-round pick from the Raiders in trade. That this was all a setup. It didn't mean any of it. It was all about getting Mark Davis, Tom Brady, John Spytek, and Pete Carroll the guy who was the coach of the Seahawks when Geno Smith became the starter after Russell Wilson. It was all a ruse to get them to give up the staggering sum of a third-round draft pick.
We talk about this sometimes whenever with Mickey Loomis, where, people are like, well, Mickey Loomis said this. He said, look past the results. Guys, you got to remember, almost everything that coaches or GMs or owners or executives say is fugazi. They're just talking. They're talking to talk. All right? They're saying stuff. They're talking out of both sides of their mouth. Just because a owner says something or an executive says something, you got to look way between the lines.
I think it's more simple than that. I don't think they were lying about it. I think the problem was they were in contract checkmate with Geno, and Geno wanted too much. I think it was that simple. This is the old interchangeable parts on the football machine. And no matter how much you like a guy, there are occasions where you have to ask yourself, we have one part that's going to be really expensive to keep. We got another part, it's going to be cheaper to insert.
Awesome.
Dollar for dollar, makes more sense to take out the old expensive part and cram in the new, cheaper dollar for dollar part. I think this is the first step in a play that ends up with Sam Darnold being signed by the Seattle Seahawks. And I won't be surprised if word breaks to that effect over the weekend. We mentioned, maybe on PFT Live, definitely at ProFootballTalk.com, that it's possible that the legal tampering will be preceded by more blatant illegal tampering than we typically see, with a lot of these deals being done Saturday or Sunday. I don't think John Schneider gives up Geno Smith for a third-round pick without knowing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with this part too, where you don't let Geno go for a third unless you know what you're about to do. The Seahawks are not going to sit there and say, yeah, let's have no plan at all. Again, this is a team that was a fringe playoff team last year. So it's like the idea that they're just willy-nilly trading their franchise quarterback away. They know who they're going to get. They know exactly what they're going to do at quarterback. Now, we haven't heard yet, and it does seem like it would be Sam Darnold, which I think is a horrible move for Seattle and a horrible move for Sam Darnold. But the Seahawks know what they're doing.
He's got a replacement, and it's not Sam Howell.
Yeah, no.
The guy they traded for last year from the Commanders. It's Sam Darnold, I believe. I guess there's a slim chance they're going to bump Sam Howell up. I believe what's going to happen next is they're going to sign Sam.
That would be some insane belief in Sam Howell, I'll tell you that. Because again, this is a team that's let's just call them a playoff team. This is a playoff type team. All right. To then be like, you know what? We're so confident in Sam Howell that we think it's just a 1-for-1. We think trading Geno, going up to Sam, no difference. We'll be the same team.
Sam Darnold. And when we see Darnold's contract versus the contract that Geno Smith inevitably will get from the Raiders, because that's part of this three-way negotiation. You're not just going to trade for Geno Smith if he's not happy with his contract situation.
Right.
He's due to make $25 million this year, which is well below
underpaid.
The market.
Yeah.
I mean, we said Matthew Stafford at 27 was way too low. Geno Smith at 25 is way too low. So it would be.
Yeah, that's where a lot of this comes into. When you see a third-round pick, part of that is also they'll pay him. There's the NFL, so much is explained if you look at the contracts and you look at money and you look at the age and all of that. And, this is a pick that looks like, or this is a trade that looks like it was 100% fueled by a contract.
It'd be foolish if the Raiders traded for Geno Smith without knowing what it's going to take to turn the last year of his contract into a multi-year deal. Whatever that is, and we'll have it next week, compare that to the deal that I think Darnold is now going to do with the Seahawks. I think that deal, and I know it's tampering, I think that deal's already in place. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Hypothetical.
Yeah.
Hey, agent of Sam Darnold, let's have
Something's
a hypothetical conversation about what a former top 3 draft pick who flamed out with the Jets and the Panthers and then was a backup with the 49ers, just hypothetically, and then had a career year that stunned everyone. Just hypothetically. what would that guy want? I think they know what Sam Darnold wants, and I think they're going to give it to him. I think that's what we'll find out probably Monday, but possibly before Monday. And I think that deal's already in place, unless they are going to go with Sam Howell, but I don't think so. Think of it this way. One of the reasons they liked Sam Howell last year, while playing for the Commanders, he went to Seattle and had a pretty good game. In a loss, but it was a pretty good game. What did Sam Darnold do in Seattle last year? Remember that game late in the regular season? I don't need glasses, I don't think, but I can't see this, so maybe I do. 22 for 35, 246 yards, 3 touchdowns, including the game-winning 39-yarder. Remember that play where Darnold sprinted up into the pocket and fired the missile to Justin Jefferson? Remember that? Seahawks surely do. Helped knock them out of the playoffs. They see how the guy performs in their building, in front of their very eyes. They're going to be more likely to want him. And they've already been down the road of failed former Jet quarterback. Geno was the original failed former Jet quarterback who eventually showed he can play. Then there's Darnold.
I would assume that is not factored in at all. I don't think they say, like, man, we had good luck with a failed former Jet quarterback. Let's find another failed former Jet quarterback.
Who was drafted 5 years later. He's now showed he can play. So they're going to be more confident that history will repeat itself in Seattle. The one risk, though, is that Clint Kubiak won't be able to do with Darnold what Kevin O'Connell was able to do last year. Yes, they've got Jackson Smith and Jigba, but they're going to need help at the receiver position. And it flashed through my brain a little while ago because I saw someone suggesting that DK Metcalf wants out in part because he wants better quarterback play. Now, I think that's a mistake because I think Geno Smith is pretty damn good, and that's not just the West Virginia bias talking. But I wonder if Darnold arriving, if there is anything to this idea that DK wants a better quarterback, I wonder if Darnold arriving
keeps DK in Seattle,
makes DK say, okay, maybe I don't want to be traded. I doubt that that's going to happen, but it's at least something to think about if Geno Smith was a factor at all in DK Metcalf's thought process.
I would think he
also,
was not.
If Geno Smith was a factor at all in DK Metcalf's thought process, forget about the Raiders bringing DK Metcalf to Las Vegas. That's the ultimate litmus test. If DK Metcalf has no problem whatsoever with Geno Smith, then maybe the Raiders trade for him too. It's a fascinating development because as of a week ago, the Raiders were trying to get Matthew Stafford. And then after Stafford stayed, what did we hear? The Raiders are exploring veteran options like
Aaron
Russell
Rodgers.
Wilson. That was not going to happen. Guy tried to get Pete Carroll fired, reportedly, in Seattle in the latter days of their relationship. Justin Fields was another name. Darnold was another name. And then there was some talk that John Spytek and Tom Brady weren't thrilled with the available veterans, but Pete Carroll wanted somebody other than a young quarterback, and now it works out perfectly. Pete Carroll knows that Geno can play. We all know Geno can play. Does that make the Raiders a playoff contender? No, but it's the next step in this.
Yeah, I mean, it gives the Raiders some consistency at a position that they have been very inconsistent at for a long time. I'll tell you this. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I do want to go back to the Derek Carr thing. I am not saying this will happen. And if them trading Geno if Geno's trade was because of his contract, then I highly doubt they would trade for Derek Carr. But until Seattle officially signs Sam Darnold or Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers or any of these other like quarterbacks who are just floating around, you are going to hear a lot of like, well, we aren't fully sure if Derek Carr is the guy in New Orleans. We have yet to hear or see from him. We've yet to hear or see any kind of like contract restructure or whatever. Clint Kubiak does have some experience with them. Maybe there is something there. I'm not saying that I'm predicting it's going to happen or whatever, but until we see confirmation in any of the ways, whether it's Seattle or New Orleans or whatever, this is kind of on the table. This is kind of like,
process of turning the team around. They've got their foundational defensive player in Max Crosby. They've got their foundational offensive player in Brock Bowers. And now they have their quarterback in Geno Smith.
And I mean, for the Raiders, 100%. Like, you have now, like, think about what the Raiders are going from. They're going from, let's just call it Aiden O'Connell and Antonio Pierce. Good Lord. To now, you're going to Pete Carroll, Geno Smith. You've got Brock Bowers. You could be potentially getting Ashton Genty. Max Crosby signed a long-term deal. All of a sudden, the Raiders have taken 400 steps forward from where they were last year. This is what you have to do as a franchise. This is what I keep saying when it comes to roster building and franchise building. You have to just get good pieces. Like, whether it's in the draft or trades or free agency, you get good, consistent pieces, a good, consistent coaching staff, and then you can march forward and you can make changes very, very quickly. The Raiders right now are 200 steps where they were last season. And in the draft, if they get another high-impact player early, whether it's a McMillan or a Ashton Genty or a Mason Graham or a whoever, Abdul Carter slides, whatever, they get that kind of player, the Raiders all of a sudden are in a much better spot than they've been in for a long time.
Smith. Now, one last point, and there might be more. I might think of more, but one that I want to mention. If my prediction is correct, and this isn't exactly discovering plutonium, I suspect that social media is currently buzzing with the notion that Sam Darnold will land with the Seattle Seahawks. It makes too much sense to not happen. And that's usually when something that we think is going to happen doesn't happen, when it just makes too much damn sense to not happen. But if Darnold goes to Seattle, that solves Minnesota's problem. You know, the Vikings have just been spinning their wheels all week. And there's been this sense of confusion as to what they're going to do. And holy crap, Darnold might not have any suitors. And holy crap, he might take our low ball offer. And holy crap, what are we going to do with J.J. McCarthy? This makes it easier.
Yeah, the Vikings want Sam Darnold to get a big deal somewhere else. The Vikings want that to be like, okay, it's run its course. Someone else pays him a lot of money. We were never going to pay him that. Now we can move forward with J.J. McCarthy. If Darnold, like Florio said, if he does not have any suitors, which would be kind of surprising, and he is forced to stay in Minnesota, then Minnesota is forced to pay him and make a decision of, do we go forward with Darnold, who just did what he did last year? Do we start this, the train with J.J. McCarthy, or do we move one of them? Do we start trying now to sign and trade?
Problem solved if Darnold goes. JJ's the QB1. Do you keep Daniel Jones? Do you bring in another veteran quarterback? Somebody asked me today, hey, what are the Vikings going to do if both Darnold and Daniel Jones go? I mean, what veteran quarterback wouldn't want to go get a QB PhD from Kevin O'Connell? They'll find somebody for a reasonable amount to come in and be the insurance against J.J. McCarthy either getting injured again or, for whatever reason, face planting as the starting quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings. So, look, for anyone who was in the pro-JJ camp, this is good news because there was concern that Darnold wasn't going to get a big offer and that the Vikings were going to keep him on a reasonable offer, and that was going to set off J.J. McCarthy, who was going to demand to be traded. If the tea leaves are being properly read here, that's not an issue for the Vikings any longer. So, in one fell swoop, we might have resolved the quarterback situations for three teams. Geno Smith, new quarterback of the Raiders. Sam Darnold, I believe,
new quarterback of the Seahawks.
And J.J. McCarthy,
Minnesota.
New quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings.
Now, it does also shrink. Remember, like, as these dominoes happen, a lot of players are affected, like Aaron Rodgers, because as they start to fill, then Aaron Rodgers is just floating around like, where the hell can I go? And then it's like, damn, I only really have the option of two teams. Like, as these dominoes start to fall, like right now, if this is true, then right now we're looking at the Giants and Pittsburgh basically as your teams who are in this like pseudo limbo.
I have a feeling,
and the Jets, I guess,
I'm going to be in this spot a few more times this weekend. We're going to do PFTPM on an emergency as needed basis. I don't have any plans this weekend other to work on PFT.
All right, there you go. Yeah, huge news, crazy stuff. I think it's a great move for the Raiders. I think it's a questionable move for Seattle. We'll see what they do next, but Interesting stuff, man. Derek Carr reuniting with Clint Kubiak. Who says no? All right, let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.